Dr. Job Kibii, welcome to Conversations in Science.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Now, you've very recently been appointed head of the Wits Sterkfontein Caves, and you came across from the Turkana Basin out in Kenya. But you're not new to Wits. You have a long history at Wits. Just share with us a little about when you first arrived and what were your studies all about.
Yes, I'm not new at Wits. My engagement with Wits University goes back to 1999. That's when I came into Wits as a master's student. I was among the first cohort of master's students who were registered in a new course called Masters in Palaeoarchaeology. And we were about 6 of us. That's when I got my engagement inside Wits, or my footing inside Wits. And I graduated in 2000 for my master's. And then the university offered me a postgraduate scholarship to continue with my doctorate studies, which I did and graduated in 2005. My main focus was on analysis of bones from the site of Sterkfontein, both for my master's and for my doctorate studies.
So I think it's really wonderful that we've brought you all the way back to Sterkfontein, and you're the expert. You've taken us back almost 25 years then in terms of work in that area. Who were your mentors during that time and within Wits, and who really encouraged you to take up the areas of paleoanthropology?
When I came to Wits, I had graduated from Nairobi University in honors in sociology and archaeology. And when I came in the palaeoarchaeology course, my main mentors were Lynn Wadri and Kathy Kuman in the archaeology field. And then in the paleontology section, which eventually evolves into palaeoanthropology, it was Ron Clark and Travis Pickering.
Wonderful to hear that, and especially having been mentored by Ron Clark. And of course, he has had this magnificent discoveries of Littlefoot out in Sterkfontein. Then, of course, you returned to Kenya at some stage. But share with us your fascination with the field of paleoanthropology. Why is this important to you, and how do you see this fitting in more broadly into understanding the origins of humankind in the context of Africa, and to see ways in which we can use paleoanthropology perhaps a lot more in advancing science, African-led science?
My fascination with paleoanthropology is because it deals with who we are as human beings. You cannot talk about paleoanthropology and not talk about us in our past and in our present, and most probably in our future. So my interest was, where did we come from? What journey have we taken to be where we are? What innovations have we achieved? What challenges have we come through? And you can only learn all that through the study of the bones that have belonged to our ancestors, the study of the technology they came up with, and then through that you'll be able to understand how they coped with the environment, what challenges they faced, because they didn't grow up in a vacuum. So there were other animals they were cohabiting the space with, and all that gives you a glimpse of what is it that it takes to be human.
And that's fascinating, really. I'm a theoretical physicist, and I wish I had the chance to start all over again, because it's just so incredible. And to think that these resources are right in our own backyard, I think that's amazing. And I'm not always sure that we, as South Africans, as Africans, have fully exploited the academic potential of what we have available. But as head as newly appointed head of the Wits Sterkfontein Caves, how do you see us driving this agenda of really heightening the importance of African science?
Yes, one thing that we have to realize and we have to acknowledge is you cannot talk about humanity without talking about Africa. Africa is the cradle of humankind. And South Africa, in that context, has some of the best evidence of us in terms of our ancestors, of some of the earliest technologies in terms of stone tools, some of the earliest innovations in terms of use of fire. So we have to get to acknowledge that for us to understand deeply who we are, South Africa is key. And Sterkfontein holds much of the evidence in South Africa when it pertains to all we are as human beings. So it is critical that Sterkfontein continues to be explored. Sterkfontein continues to be a hub for research, and that by that it should be top-notch research. It continues to be a hub for innovation. It continues to be a hub for postgraduate training, and also for a hub for engagement, whether it's public and the community at large.
Fantastic. This is really what we are looking forward to in terms of you leading this new enterprise, the most newly established entity in the Faculty of Science within the Earth Sciences cluster. And I'm certainly looking forward to working with you over the coming years to realize the very goals that you speak of. But since the conversation in science is more about the scientists behind the science, I think the audience would like to know a little bit more about yourself, your personal journey, what it's taken for you to get to where you are today. And so let's go back a little bit. You mentioned you did your undergraduate studies at the University of Nairobi. So who there really supported you and mentored you? I mean, we at Wits University are quite accustomed to students being somewhat, we certainly have a great success rate in terms of students, but a number of students are kind of not always clear about what they should be doing and how they should go about kind of aiming for their professional goals. Who would you credit then during your undergraduate studies for mentoring you and supporting you and getting you to believe in your future in science?
Yes. There are two key individuals who mentored me during my undergraduate. There is Professor Wahome and Dr. Kibii. They are still at the University of Nairobi. They were our undergraduate lecturers. And Professor Wahome was in archaeology, and Dr. Kibii was doing the paleontology section. So they instilled with us the idea and the notion that we have to learn deeper about the resources that we have. There are countries that have oil. There are countries that have gold and minerals. But they say those ones cannot equate to the paleontological and archaeological wealth, because that wealth, the paleontological and archaeological wealth, where you find it, you can find a replica of that elsewhere. And then eventually, I tended to be drawn to the side of learning more about bones, because I realized a single piece of bone represents an individual who was alive at a certain point and at a certain place and at a specific time. So I wanted to know, what is it that we can learn from this bone about that individual and the place they were in and the time they were living.
Fascinating, really. And it's great that you had those mentors and folk around you who inspired you, but more importantly, that you took the advice and the inspiration very seriously. And I always think that it's just so important for quality researchers to engage with our own undergraduate students. Teaching is extremely important because it's exactly there that you leave those lasting impressions with our young students to have them reach for their professional goals. But share with us a little bit about your family. Where did you grow up, and the schools that you went to, and the circumstances around which you lived?
I am the last of 12 kids in our family, so it was a big family, and I grew up in rural Kenya, close to the base of Mount Kenya, and I went to a primary school, which was 5 kilometers away. I used to walk barefoot to school, but that was not odd then, because 99% of the kids came from similar backgrounds, and the 1% were kids whose parents were either teachers or government workers. But one thing that the teachers used always to challenge us was that if we want to change our circumstances, we have to get a good education, and we have to pursue to the highest level of education we can.
So it's wonderful to hear of your background and the difficulty, but I see a common theme centered on emphasis of education and hard work, and with that success can follow. Let's roll back forwards then to today, as your job begins as head of the Wits Sterkfontein Caves. Then it's still very early days. You barely got here just a few days ago as head, and still an awful lot to unpack, to decide on your priorities. And we want to devise a strategic plan for the Sterkfontein Caves through a highly consultative process. But you already touched on a little bit on the sorts of things that you'd like to see emerge within Sterkfontein. But could you share with us a little more in detail about what you see as your priorities in heading up that environment?
Yes. Some of my priorities as the head of Wits Sterkfontein Caves is to ensure that Sterkfontein remains a hub for groundbreaking research, for innovation, for public engagement, for outreach, for postgraduate training, and to make the place meaningful to each and every person, whereby each person identifies with Sterkfontein as the source of evidence to who they are, and a source of knowledge to what it has taken to where we are, and for people to feel that they have a stake in the success of the Sterkfontein Caves, and that success will come about if the research is good, if the research is communicated to the public effectively, and if that research has an impact on our day-to-day lives. So for me is to engage with the scientists, with the schools, with the stakeholders, and find what's the best way we can enhance Sterkfontein as part of the cradle of humankind in making sure that those goals are realized.
Fantastic. So certainly looking forward to walking this journey with you. You're not alone. There's an entire team of individuals around this endeavor. We will have a steering committee. You're part of the Sterkfontein Caves, so intrinsically a part of the broader Earth Sciences cluster within the Faculty of Science. So the multidisciplinary aspects and engaging with the broader environment within the Faculty of Science, within the university, within the province and the country, of course, it's UNESCO World Heritage Site. So great many different facets to the Sterkfontein Caves, and I have no doubt that you're ideally suited to helping lead in this very exciting endeavor. Dr. Job Kibii, thank you so much indeed for joining us in this conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me a chance to head one of the most important sites in the globe.
Thank you.
Thank you.